Jenni White.
Did you miss me?
The Jenni White is back.
And how much did you miss me? I'm going to change. How much did you miss me?
A ton. It's so lonely doing the podcast by myself without you.
But just think, you were able to get in a word edgewise.
It's all right. What little I can say is usually pretty important.
That makes me giggle. So how have you been?
Good. I can't wait to hear about your vacation. I hope you got unplugged and out of politics for a while and you got to relax for real without getting aggravated by all the little Twitter posties and Facebook people that drive you insane sometimes.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that at the end. I'll kind of give you a rundown because I have to tell you we visited all 5 national parks in Utah. So in southern end, and then ended up in Vegas. So if you went from completely natural to completely unnatural.
To as man-made as possibly can be.
To as man-made as could possibly be. Yeah. So it was kind of a screeching stop there to the actual vacation. It was very interesting, but I did have some conversations with some people and I thought, it'd be really instructive to talk about them on the podcast. So for those of you who would like to stay around, because we would like to get Kayla on here to talk about what she needs to talk about, which is super important for all of us. So we will talk more about that at the end, but I do want to talk about how is it that I leave and you let them try to assassinate Trump again? What were you doing while I was gone?
Well, obviously I wasn't on point enough to post and expose the government as much as possible.
No, I just, wow.
Well, you know what is really, when you think about it, yeah, we've had presidential assassinations, but to be so open about it just in the media itself, because you go back over the last couple of years, you got guys like Phil Mudd, on talking about how President Trump needs to be killed. You got Chuck Schumer saying, "Oh, the intelligence community has 6 ways to Sunday to kill, to take this guy out," and you can just keep going through all these media people, inciting that violence, putting it out there in one way or another. I mean, they're just as much to blame as anybody.
Well, it kills me, their rhetoric. Trump is a threat to democracy. I mean, number one, we're a republic. We're not a democracy. Yeah. I get that you can say that, democratically we vote or whatever. But this whole idea that Trump is a threat to our democracy isn't even accurate because we don't have a democracy. But the left doesn't understand the difference between a republic and a democracy, so they don't really care. All they're doing is fear mongering, and it infuriates. And then they go, "It was him. It was him."
Yeah. Well,
there's so many days.
Yeah. Well, and you know what gets me? They got this guy with an AK. They're trying to, do everything with the total scare tactic. I don't think this guy was just alone crazy out of his mind. There's probably a lot more to that story. And I hope Ron DeSantis can keep that guy in custody in Florida and not turn him over to the feds, so we can actually maybe see what's happening, or who or what helped plan this thing.
Oh, it's a 3-letter agency starting with a C, and everything stacks up to make that work. You read Operation Gladio.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know how this works.
Oh yeah.
I mean, RFK, when he was with Tucker Carlson, was basically alluding to the same thing. So it's not like people don't get, I mean, the people who are in the know, I mean, most of the people, trust me, that I don't even think they realize what side of the bed they wake up on every morning. But I mean, the people who are awake, they know what's going on.
If it's not so blatant right in front of your face, I mean, here we've already had 2+. I think there was maybe another attempt that was thwarted, pretty easily a while back, after the first one. But you've got basically 2.5 attempts on Trump in a couple of months, when there wasn't an attempt on Biden. There was an attempt on Obama. I mean,
well, who even knows where Biden is? Come on.
Well, and they're always trying to blame us and, conservatives and white Christian gun owners, for all these incidents. And here you go. It's the left the one who's violent.
How many of any of these people have been white Christian gun owners? I mean, any of them, like school shooters. I mean, how many of these people are that? But, the problem is the media. And again, at the end of the podcast, if you can stay, I think you might want to hear a couple of things that happened to me, because they were very interesting.
Stay.
What?
I said I'm definitely going to stay, and I want to talk about at the end of the podcast. I got this book here, Brave New Worlds: How AI is going to Revolutionize Education and Why That's a Good Thing, by Solomon Kahn. The Kahn Institute. Bill Gates. Bill Gates says this is a favorite guy. Timely masterclass in the future of education.
Yeah, well, did you read Stitt's executive order that happened while I was gone, which is going to have an what is her name? Our Nellie Tyler. Why can't I remember?
I didn't see it.
Mike, what's his name? Former representative who now runs the broadband. These guys, they never leave government. It's a circle. It's like an infinity chain.
Well, government's where all the money is. There's no doubt about that.
It's ridiculous. Okay, well, so we've goofed around long enough. We need to bring on Kayla, because she has got some super important information to talk to us about today. And there are several of you on this morning. Call your friends, get them on, tell them to watch. And those of you who are on, get your piece of paper, because Kayla's not only going to wind you up, but she's going to give you something to do. So let's bring on our friend Kayla Blount. Maybe I can't make my mouse work since I came back. How are you, Kayla?
Good morning. I'm just sitting back here thinking of the words you said: unplug and no politics.
Yeah, how's that going to happen, right? How does that even happen?
Yeah.
How do you unplug?
When I get up in the mornings, I'm thinking, okay, I'm in insurance and I do a lot in the political world. I wonder which one is going to give me a stroke faster.
Well, you know what? We obviously don't want you to have a stroke, but what we do want to do is talk a little bit about what is going on. So last time we had you on, we were talking about home insurance, because mine got canceled out here and we've had issues with home insurance. And we talked about that last time. And then while we were talking, you said, oh, but wait, let me tell you what's going on about car insurance. So I'd love to know, because I pay let's see, what is it? $6,500 a year for car insurance, which just seems like, are you kidding me? So what's going on?
So there's a couple of different things. So the first thing we're going to do is go back and review the last few years, just like we did on the homeowners, So you get a little bit of buildup, and then something that truly I hope it does make everybody angry. I was talking to Jenni before the podcast, and I said, I'm going to assign everybody homework. Get a pen and paper and write some of this down. I mean, truly, adulting is one of those things where you can itch and moan about something all day long. But unless you're going to do something to have an impact on the results, like, what's the point? So I hope I'm going to motivate you to do some things, to do some research, and then to start contacting people going, hey, I want to have an impact on these results because it not only affects me, it affects my neighbors, it affects my friends. If everybody was doing this and trying to have an impact, we might get some movement. So first thing I'm going to do is go back, like we talked about the home. And again, in insurance, nothing is immediate. So pretty much everything that you're seeing happen today in regards to cost and coverages, the cost that started 2-3 years ago, because by the time you go through and look at, the last 12, 24 months, revenues and expenses, the claims, the things that have happened, and they start adjusting rates. What is happening right now actually happened a few years ago, and they're now just adjusting to take care of it now. So we're going to talk about the same thing a little bit and COVID. During COVID, where it really hit us hard in the homeowner industry was just the excessive amount of claims and then how long it took to get things repaired. Well, in the auto world, it's the same thing, but it was a larger domino effect because, shockingly enough, a lot of our things come from overseas.
No,
so
you don't say.
Yes, crazy, huh? So when somebody files a claim for a vehicle, and in a normal world, your car's going to be out of commission 12, 15 days. You get a rental car, and then you get your car back, and you go on your way. Well, during COVID, we found out that we just had extreme waiting periods. You could be waiting 2, 3, 4, 5 months for a little part. Well, when you take a rental expense that's supposed to be 10, 15 days, and it's 4 months, that has a huge impact. Well, then the cost to get the parts here, well, then so many things on vehicles are electronic. So now you have to pay more to get it fixed because the guy no longer makes $15 an hour. We pay him $30 because he has a piece of paper so he can plug in electronics, which it's great. It makes us, in the long run, hopefully makes us safer, but it just makes the cost exponential when you go to repairs. So you factor all the advances in technology, again, what we went through in COVID, and then just the increase in frequency, and you stack up the last 2-3 years, and bam, all of a sudden we're looking at these extreme costs. Well, at the end of the day, we all know as consumers, when something has an extreme cost, where does it get passed to? You and I. So that's what we're seeing in the auto industry. But that's a 30,000 foot view in a condensed amount of time. But the real thing that I want to talk about is just the litigation that has happened. In your homeowner's insurance, you don't necessarily see the litigation that you do on the auto side. And I'm telling y'all, if we do not get a handle on this, I mean, if we think the home prices are bad, buckle up, because there is no end in sight on the auto. So why I wanted you to get a pen and paper is I want you to write this down and do your research on it, because I hope it makes your blood boil. Look up third-party litigation. And so, but before I get into this, I'm going to tell you why I got passionately involved with this. This is my industry, but I'm human. Until something happens to you that really ticks you off, you're like, oh gosh, that's a sad story. I hope it works out for those people.
I feel so bad.
Yeah. And then something happens to you and you're like, no, I do not like this. What do I need to do to have an impact to make the results better? So a couple of years ago, I had a client call me on Saturday, and she lives up in Woodward, Oklahoma. And she said, hey, I'm so sorry to bother you on a Saturday. My son is down in the city. He's coming home. He just got in an accident. Never been in an accident. What do I do? So I'm like, okay, well, where is he? He was literally like 5 miles from my house. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's right by where I live. I'm going to hang up the phone, tell him I'm on my way. Grab my shoes, grab my coat, out the door. So where the accident happened was on I-35 and 15th Street. Yeah. And if you know that area, kind of in Oklahoma, Edmond area, on the off ramp, there's like an S curve to get on to get off of I-35. Well, the gentleman was pulling off and he didn't see a car coming around the S curve.
Yeah.
And where he hit the car was his front right of his vehicle hit the front left of their vehicle.
Right. So the driver's side door of the other guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I pull up, he's there, he's freaking out, never been in an accident before. There is minimum damage to each vehicle. His is undrivable because where he hit them, it bent it into the wheel. So his vehicle had to be towed. And so the couple in the other vehicle are walking around, they're on their phones. And so I asked him, did you call the highway patrolman? Well, he called 911, and so they dispatched the highway patrolman before where it was. So I actually got there before the highway patrolman got there. So there doesn't look like there's serious damage to the property damage, which is the vehicles or any of the humans involved. And so I just stay in my car, let him give his statement. The other folks give their statement. We wait for the tow trucks. We can find out where the car's going. And then I take him home with me so we can wait for his parents. Well, a couple of weeks later, I check in on the claim, and there's less than $8,000 of damage between the two vehicles. So very, very minor accident when you think of the repairs for the car. Well, about 6 months later, I got a notification and it said the bodily injury on this claim had maxed out. And I was like, wait a minute, that cannot be right. I was like, I was there. I know about this. So I called the claims adjuster and I said, hey, I think there's a mistake on this because I gave him the story I just gave you. And I said, there is no way. And he said, well, he goes, we've put you on alert because they've hired an attorney and this could possibly go into litigation. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So I'm like, okay, well, who else can I talk to? I want to give them the same story. Who do I need to give my statements to? And come to find out, once it was settled, it was actually less expensive to pay these people out almost $300,000 for bodily injury than to take it to court. Because if they took it to court and if it went to a jury trial, it could actually be settled for more. So in the insurance,
how does anybody come up with $300,000?
Oh, girl. So I'm like, okay, I'm mad because one, there's a whole chain of events that goes into this, right? So I'm like, okay, my first thought was for my client. This is a young, early 20s male. So he is going to have this massive claim that files him around for the next 5 years. So who do you think is going to be the most unattractive person to shop for insurance? They're going to pull up his record and be like, yeah, we don't want this guy. He's going to be a danger to our books. So as I said earlier, okay, what am I going to do to have an impact on these results? So I start studying about auto insurance and litigation. The rabbit hole that I went down literally the next 6 months, like I was obsessed with this because if I have one claim that cost me $300,000, think about if there's multiple claims, and then if there's multiple agencies, and then if there's multiple states, there's going to be no way to recoup this money. So where does it come from? Circle back around, and they're going to get it from all the consumers that do business with that company. And so by doing the sheer math, so think about this. If you have one vehicle and you do the math for a year and just say you take it out for 10 years. So you have one vehicle, let's do round numbers. You pay $2,000 a year. Okay. So if you stay with that company, it's going to be relatively the same price. Let's just say over 10 years, let's factor in a little bit of an increase. Say, you pay what? Let's say $25,000. Okay. So if they're recouping $25,000 in 10 years, but in 1 year they pay $300,000, do the math on that. That's not sustainable in business. So again, where's the money going to come from? So what I want you to look at and research is third-party litigation. Now, not all claims involve this, but a lot of your bigger claims or the claims that go on for a long period of time actually are getting help from people outside of the US. So if you look at what third-party litigation is investment firms, like hedge funds, firms outside of the United States, there are some inside the United States, but a majority of them are outside of the United States that actually fund attorneys firms here to say, okay, we're going to upfront some of these costs so you can go to battle for the insured. So you can drag it out. You can do all the things that are going to make the cost exponential. So say there's an auto accident. The first thing that they do is when you contact an attorney is they have a checklist of things that they ask you. And what they're trying to find out if there is a way where they can start doing things. And I have so many friends that are attorneys and I dearly love them, but this just gets all over me. If you are trying to prove soft tissue damage, get the gloves out because that is so hard to prove. You can't see it on x-rays. You can't see it on MRIs. Right. It's one of those feeling things and it's you tell me what's going on. And so if you can take a litigation and drag it out and you have all the administrative fees, you have the attorney's fees, you have all the court costs, you have all of the expert witness costs, you can just rack up bills. Well, who pays for that? If the firm isn't big enough, what they'll do is they will take the outside money, the third-party litigation money, use that to drag the trial out as long as possible or drag the negotiations out as long as possible to rack up the bills. So it's a threat or almost a challenge to the insurance companies to go, hey, in this case, give me $300,000 or I'll take you to court for $5. What do you want to do? Well, I mean,
oh my gosh,
the options are horrible and more horrible. So if you
horrible and horribler.
So if you look at it from the insurance side, I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad we settled for $300,000 because I don't want to pay $5. But then you go to the reverse side and you're like, why didn't anybody stand up to these people? Why didn't you take my, why can't I get on the stand and let me give my statement? I was there. So I will tell you that I learned an extreme lesson on that. I will be the first one that says, oh my gosh, look at that idiot. They have their phone out. They want to catch something so they can prove that they're right. I preach this from the highest mountain whenever we have clients that add teenagers to a vehicle. If they have ever been in an accident, get your phone out, take pictures, take video, because that is going to be our biggest weapon to combat some of this stuff, because that's going to be the evidence to show, hey, if you're skipping around your car and happy that you got in an accident because you just won the lottery, then you could use that in court to hopefully help mitigate some of these costs. So when you're looking at the third-party litigation, there's a couple of firms I want you to look at it, and these are some of the big offenders in the U.S. It's called Swiss, just like the Swiss knife, Swiss knife, SWISSRE Group. There's another big one called West Fleet. That's one word. West Fleet Advisors or West Fleet Capital. And then I think it's pronounced Burford Capital, but it's BURFORD. So look it up, because what is extremely aggravating is these are investors in other companies or in other countries that are investing in attorneys firms here to basically make life more miserable for all of us.
Kayla, my question is, how does that benefit the investor? So did they get a percentage of the court costs?
Yes, excellent question. So again, numbers. So let's just use in a lawsuit, you have 1 through 100. So you've got 100% of the funds. So when a case is settled, like let's just do thirds. So a third of it goes to the investor. 33% goes out to the door to the folks who invested, who provided the upfront cost to get the litigation going. Then you've got the attorney's fees, and then all of the administrative costs associated with that. So the court costs, the discovery cost, court fees, anything in the cost to get the litigation taken care of. So you've got a third. So in this huge, massive court case, the person who was actually injured may only end up with 30, 40% of the settlement. So yeah, that's eye-opening and very frustrating.
So I'm just curious, when they go, because Yeah, I'm going to be mean, but that's just me, and everybody knows I'm mean. To me, these guys are ambulance chasers. I mean, and they cost us hundreds, millions, probably millions and millions of dollars in extra. They're the slip and fall attorneys. Everybody watched Better Call Saul. I mean, it's how it works. I slipped and fell in the grocery store and I hurt my back. I need $27 million. And then of course the grocery costs go up, because that's factored in there. I mean, these people, I get that you get out of law school and you need to have a job, but this is gross. I mean, it literally is. You may get a payday, but you're literally screwing everybody else.
Oh, it's infuriating. And I will tell you that once I started down this rabbit hole. So let me tell you one other thing. So we're influenced by outside factors every day. And a lot of people watch TV. So I will tell you, TV is one of the biggest outside factors. Well, about a week after I went through this experience, I got a call and a younger client said, hey, I was in an auto accident last night. How much am I going to get? And I was like, I guess I don't understand the question. I said, what do you mean? How much are you going to get? She said, well, I was in an accident. How much am I going to get? And I'm telling you, I thought, okay, this is my calling. I've had two things in just a short amount of time. I need to take some action on this. So it is the commercials. And it's once you get on this wheel, I mean, you are this hamster that's just running, because you go through these firms go through their first couple of cases and go, that was not really that much work for a big amount of payout. So they put a little amount into advertising, and then they get more clients, and it is just this wheel. And our office, we do a flex work schedule, which we work a couple of days from the office and we work a couple of days from home. And I like to have background music, so either I'll have a podcast on in the background or some music, but every once in a while I'll have the TV on, and it just, I'm telling you, my blood boils, because every other commercial during the daytime, have you been hurt in an auto accident? Oh my gosh, I'm going to reach through the TV and shake them and go, do you know what you're doing to an entire industry, and basically what you're doing to my wallet? Because we're all affected. We're all consumers of insurance.
Well, so I'm just curious.
I do want to say this real quick, Jenni, because I've done podcasts before where people are like, well, that's really mean. What about the people that need it? I truly understand. There are accidents where there is either a fatality, there is a loss of a limb, there's a permanent disablement. I mean, that's why this procedure is here to begin with. We want to make sure that those people are duly, made full as much as possible. But the sad part is that's just a small amount of it now. The big thing is I was in an auto accident. When can I cash in my ticket? So it's very frustrating on both ends as a consumer and seeing this industry, being in this industry. And now that I'm more aware of it, like I've always been a business owner that I want to look at my back end numbers. And so I keep track of the number of claims that come through the door, what they are. And I will tell you that I've kept very well the notes on the accidents that I've seen come through the door the past 2 years. And there are 3 law firms in Oklahoma City that the minute I see that on there, I thought, one, it's not going to be settled for a while. And two,
who are they?
Money.
Who are they? Can you tell us?
Are you trying to put a target on my back, or are you going to let me work behind the scenes?
Okay, I'll let you work behind the scenes, but
I mean, I am working with legislatures on having some sort of tort reform, because if you're an Oklahoman, if you remember back in like 2005 to 2010, we were doing the same thing in workers' comp.
That's what I was going to ask you about.
To get hurt at work, and we were killing small businesses.
Yeah.
We truly had small businesses leaving our state because they couldn't afford to do business here. And so a couple of business owners got together and go, this is not sustainable. They worked with the legislature, and it took about 3 years, but they actually got tort reform passed. And now if you Google workers' comp, there's just a handful of firms that do it because it's not profitable to get hurt. We truly need this in the auto industry.
Well, and like you said, there's my son's girlfriend's sister. It's like one of those.
All of this.
She actually was doing a job and did get hurt. I mean, she wasn't doing something she shouldn't have been doing, but she in the commission of her job, she broke her leg and actually needed surgery for it. So that there is a place for that. And none of us are going to say, well, it's just up to you. I mean, that's just ridiculous. If you're at work and you are injured on that job, it's, the employer is going to have to help you out. I mean, that is part of the reason why they carry indemnification insurance,
Exactly.
for that reason. So that's fine. And if you, oh gosh, how many times do we want to, and we don't want to, because it's so painful when you hear about somebody being killed in an accident with a drunk driver, or a drunk driver maiming somebody else, or just somebody falling asleep at the wheel. I mean, there are all kinds of accidents, not accidents, but actual accidents that do require some kind of remediation, and it's monetary remediation. And that's why you carry insurance, is because if now I'm in a wheelchair or I require 7 surgeries, that can't come out of my budget. It's not going to work. That's why I pay insurance. But what you're talking about is these people who say, oh, well, I can't even move my arm because I think it's in my muscle in my arm. And, it's so bad. And Julia said something a second ago. I put it up here. And I really do believe this is the biggest part of our problem. Most of our society believes they should get something for nothing. Just like that woman who called you and said, how much am I going to get? I was in an accident.
Well, and truly, like, I was taught this as a child. No matter how good a person you are, no matter what you do, how great your life is, at some point in your life, something bad is going to happen to you. So how do you deal with it? And then just some people are going to throw their hands up and be like, well, I'm not going to deal with this. I just need you to give me money so I can get better. But again, there are cases where this is why the system is in place. I do not want to downplay that, because I have had clients that have had fatalities and it's awful. Your life will never be the same.
No.
But on the flip side of that, let's go in and talk about what insurance companies are trying to do to mitigate it. But again, there's cost associated with everything. So now that they know kind of the pattern, they see what's going on, they're like, okay, again, what can we do to have an impact on the results? So now insurance companies are hiring investigators. Claims aren't settled as fast as they used to be, which then the person who, the innocent person, it's having an effect on them because their claim takes longer to be settled. Sometimes a client will call and be like, why did they ask me this question? And I talked to somebody else and told them the same thing like 2 days ago. Well, insurance companies, they're trying to be a good steward of their funds. So they're having to hire and do more investigations. They're having to go and do more research on things. Well, that slows the process down. Well, who's going to pay for the investigators? Who's going to pay while this lengthens the time frame of this? Again, the consumer is picking up the invoice for the steps we're having to take to try to correct the fraud. So either way that you look at it, the consumer is picking up the invoice for the additional cost.
Yeah. Well, before we go too much further, you kind of started a list of things that you think people need to do. Like, number 1, make sure if you're in an accident, you get video and pictures of what's going on to kind of help mitigate that. What were some of the other ones that because I'm forgotten now. I do want to
tell you, the videos and the pictures are awesome. One of the first clients that I went through this experience, and so I made a list. And if somebody calls in because of an accident, I want to go over this checklist with them. And so the first thing I say is take pictures and take video. Well, shortly after this, we had a client that was pulling out of a McDonald's, and the traffic was moving, and so he's pulling out, and then the traffic stopped. So about a third of his car was hanging out into oncoming traffic. Well, the light turns green on the other side. He doesn't have a chance to move. There's a teenage girl that is barreling down the street, doesn't even tap her brakes, hits the back end of his car. Well, in auto accidents, there's a percentage of fault, because in true reality, what was the start of this? This gentleman was actually in her lane. If you were paying attention, you could have done things to mitigate or stop this, or actually not cause the accident. So he calls me and I said, okay, where are you? And he said, I'm right here. We're waiting for the cops. I said, get your phone out. I said, walk around the car, take pictures of the scene. I said, take video of the scene. So he took a video of the scene, and it actually happened off of Kelly and Danforth and Edmond by the McDonald's 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
And so the statement that the young lady gave the officer was, I tried to stop and I couldn't stop in time. The video showed no skid marks. The video also showed a sign that said 40 miles per hour. And based on the impact results, they estimated that she was probably going about 50 to 55. So this video.
What do you want to bet she was doing this?
So if it would have progressed, they could have gotten her phone, and they can plug in your vehicle. Our vehicles, the newer ones, are so advanced. They can tell you, did you honk your horn? Did you tap on your brakes? Did you accidentally hit the gas instead of it? So your car can tell on you. Well, so can your phone. So this actually was settled because of the evidence, but our client was not assigned as much fault because she had a lot to do with it just by not paying attention.
Right.
So I always tell clients, get your phones out and take videos and take pictures. And you can actually go online and Google, what do I need to do in case of an accident? And there's a checklist on there. And I can send it to you and you can put it up there. But we always ask clients, get a picture or video of the scene, take a picture of their tag, take a picture of their ID and of their insurance card. And then when the officer comes on the scene, I've started saying, take pictures of the officer's vehicle. So if something goes awry and we need information, we can give them the information of, this is the officer that worked the scene. And then they also will take a report. Sometimes they give you a hand report, and then sometimes they'll say, call into the station. This is the incident number. Any documentation that you see, take a picture of, because you want to have as much information about the accident, because just the way things are trending, you're going to have to prove some of this, because it is your statement against them, and you are going to be your biggest advocate by far.
Okay, so now what do we need to do to help you get us some tort reform on this?
So do a little bit of research on this, because you want to be able to speak with knowledge, speak eloquently to your legislator, call them up, tell them, hey, I don't like the way this is trending. This is costing me money. This is costing you money. This is costing our state money. First of all, I don't want people in the UK benefiting off things that happen, a tragedy that happens in the US. I don't want third-party litigation to be able to be available in this state. And I want some sort of reform on the advertising. I don't want to go home for lunch and find out that if somebody taps my bumper, I could be in the running for $500,000. Like, the message that they're sending is just, I believe it's almost bad faith to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is too. I think it's, there's a word that I can't think of right now, but I think bad faith sums it up very well. So, but again, it's kind of that trend of me. I mean, I remember, because I'm old enough to remember the time before these. And I remember when we got these things and you would just see everybody, I just feel like people as a rule are incredibly narcissistic. We love ourselves very much, which is why we need Jesus. I mean, and a little humility. They don't
want to take responsibility. No. We'll even have a client that's in a fender bender and they'll call me and, okay, all right, this should be done pretty quickly. This is going to be the process. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to call an attorney. I'll let them handle it. Take some responsibility in this. I mean, there's going to be things that happen in our life that we're going to have to deal with. They may not be fun, but you're going to have to deal with them. I think responsibility is another big thing. I'm going to deal with this here. You do it.
Really? Honestly, people say that?
It is mind blowing. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, that didn't help.
I'm here to bring joy to the world. Have you heard
Well,
that?
and
No,
you know,
I mean,
yeah. Well, you know what I think's unethical also, Kayla, is just these people that have these like all-in-one conglomerated deals where you've got the attorney, the doctor, the clinic, you know, they're all
yes.
together
So
in one single place. I mean,
we didn't even touch on that, but that's another thing that I found in my research. So you always want to listen to keywords. And when you were talking about when they're like, there's a threat to democracy, the first thing when I hear that, I was like, oh, obviously you don't understand the words of our Pledge of Allegiance. So a little rabbit hole there. But always look for keywords, because you'll hear we have a network of partners. Ding, 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 ding.
yeah.
I got all my buddies in this line. And as long as we're all pulling the same cord, we're all going to make money. So they send you to their consultant to have an exam. They send you to their consultant, their partner, to have x-rays. They send you to their partners to have therapy. Like when I hear the word partners or in our network, the first thing I say, oh, that's your buddy that you're giving money to. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, I completely believe that. Hey, Michael, where you're in finance. Do you know of any places like this where you can literally buy in to get a return on investment?
Well, they're like Kayla said, they're either hedge funds, private equity investments. It's like I've told you before, and I think I've mentioned on the program, we have investments here in our office to where we literally buy life insurance policies kind of towards the end. You know, we'll buy the people out. We'll you know, if we have candidates that we'll go in and say, hey, you've got a $1 million life insurance policy. We'll give you a certain percentage of that if you want to have that money and turn the life insurance policy over to us. Now, that's not as unethical as this entire auto insurance deal, in my opinion, but there's a ton of investments that are like that are just private equity and hedge fund type of investments. They're not publicly advertised. You know, you're not going to go log into your Charles Schwab account and go, you know, buy shares or participate in something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be, you know, an accredited investor, but those opportunities, you get presented with those all the time.
That prey on
Oh yeah.
that's just terrible.
Well, and
the
just like
frustrating part is the people that actually, like, there are people, very low income people that get severely hurt in an accident. So are you truly giving them justice by, instead of doing a settlement right now to help make their lives better, you drag this out for 3 years?
Yeah.
I mean, they can hardly eat for the next 3 years, but you are fighting for them. Like, is that really in their best interest?
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. Well, you said, and I remember this, it took 3 years to get workers' comp done. Do you suppose there's any, I mean, if we just really push it hard enough, can we get through it? I mean, what are your thoughts on legislating this out of existence? Because the thing that I found out is, which is sad, we send people up to the legislature to do what benefits the liberty, not benefits financially, benefits the liberty, the liberty of the people in their districts. And what they're doing is parlaying it into figuring out a way to make money for themselves, or just saying, you know, hey, I make money off of this, and so I'm not going to help my constituency because I need to have this money. And this is becoming a real problem in our legislature. So what do you think the best tack is to take to try to make sure that we can get these legislators to understand, you know, we're taxed as hell and we're not going to take it anymore?
Well, I don't know if it's the good part, but what I look as, you know, what's going to progress this quicker is back in with the workers' comp didn't affect everybody. So it was a slower moving wheel. If you have a car, you're affected. So you get a couple of these rate increases and it's like, okay, wait a minute. What's going on here? I hope that will trigger them to ask questions. And I hope every single person that is listening to this will, again, do 10 minutes worth of research and then smile and dial and say, I need you to help me get a resolution to this problem, because it is truly, it affects everyone.
Yeah.
Well, and if you
Well,
think about
everybody
it too, it affects consumers in a couple of different avenues, because if you pay car insurance, then you're affected. If you buy goods at a business that has fleet vehicles, you're affected. You should see commercial insurance. So I will tell you right now too, it's a wonder I get anything done during the daytime because I do so much research sometimes. So the other big thing is the trucking industry. The litigation that is going on in the trucking industry will actually blow your mind, because generally those accidents do have more property damage. You know, you have a Mack truck hit a Prius,
right.
you know, look at that. But then most of those are on highways. They're not on city streets. So they're a higher rate of speed. There's sometimes more than one vehicle involved. And so those can get very complex and very complicated. And so what does that do to the cost? Just skyrockets them. So you've got your cost of insurance. You've got your cost of the delivery of goods. You've got your cost of, there are truckers that are like, I can't even afford the insurance. So the ones that can't afford the insurance are charging higher rates to do the job. Again, who pays the ultimate bill? We're left with holding the back on that. So we're getting it from the personal side and we're getting it from the commercial side.
Oh my gosh, that's a really excellent point, because I mean, you're right. Everything just keeps going up under the Biden administration for sure. But definitely I can see, boy, I mean, if those things are coming off of trains or boats or whatever and getting loaded onto trucks to be trucked to wherever their end destination is, you know, that's, wow, we're paying for that too. So,
well, I will tell you that my husband does this, and I thought we were going to have to use it. But he has a camera. He has a big 2500 series truck, and then sometimes he pulls a big 19-foot trailer. So even though he's not a big Mack truck, he's a big guy on the road. And so he goes back and forth to Austin and Houston quite a bit. And he called me one time and I was like, oh my gosh, something's the matter. Like his voice. And he said, I could not have stuck a piece of paper in between the car in front of me and my front bumper. And a car pulled in front of him and literally hit the brakes. By the grace of God, he did not tap them. But if something would have happened, we could have pulled this camera to show that this was maybe one of the rings of folks that's how they make a living, is having auto accidents. And I will tell you, when you,
oh gosh, I forgot about that. Yes. So that's another thing. Have a camera in your car, and they make them. You can get them, I mean, anywhere.
And it's a couple $100, which I know that is an investment, but if it can save you thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, I mean, to me, it's worth the financial investment. And another thing that I hope that we can get pushed through, or insurance companies are becoming more aware of this, is if you have had multiple claims in the last few years, not as somebody who has hit someone, but somebody who has been hit, okay, either you just are a really bad driver and have really bad luck, or there's a reason you've been in so many accidents and had so many injuries. I hope that they fight it from that side too, because, well, you can't, to me, get more unethical than intentionally trying to ruin somebody else's life.
Yeah. Well, and I like Julia's comment. Attorneys are part of our justice system. So once again, they use government to steal from and prey on the people. It's such a racket. I mean, it's sad to say, but I mean, and not everybody is like that, but good night. I don't think you have to go out on a limb to say this is happening a lot more now than it ever happened before. And honestly, I think, you know, go to Vegas for 4 minutes. You know, you just realize hedonism is kind of the rule today. It's not love your neighbor So, we've gone from Jesus being at the center of our lives to nothing being at the center of our lives. And without that, you kind of there you're missing some rails there to keep you on track. And
Well, what is the best disinfectant you can ever get? It's sunshine. Sunshine
True.
is light. If you
Yeah.
shine light on a situation, I hope
Yeah.
it brings people out of the woodwork to start trying to get results.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
think about
and
it too.
that is another good point too, because I think people don't talk sometimes about what's going on, or they don't go, hey, has your car insurance gone up? Or they're kind of, we're so insulated today that I don't think speak as much as to each other as we used to. And I think if we realized that we were all having the same problems.
Well, that's what's so great about podcasts. And when we talk about having influence earlier, when you're watching TV, it is a one-way stream. It's just going in. You cannot control the narrative at all. You are listening to the narrative.
Yeah.
I used to be one of those people that was like, do you listen to a podcast? Oh, I am not a podcaster. Like, I don't have time to listen to. That is almost all I listen to, because what is the easiest way to get the truth out? Live conversation where you cannot dictate the narrative. So what we're speaking here is actual real events and things that are happening without somebody going in on the backside and go, let's not say it this way because that might offend this person. Let's say it this way. Yeah, I am an equal opportunity offender. If you're not doing the right thing, I hope I offend you. So,
yeah. I mean, all of those are excellent points for sure. I mean, and that's one of the reasons we decided we were going to do the podcast, right? Right, Michael? Okay, so is there anything else you can give us, to kind of finish out here?
Yes, the last thing that I would say is be a good human. And we all value our time. Every day when I leave the house, I tell my husband this. I'm like, okay, have a good day. Make good choices. So every day we have the opportunity to make good choices. And I know time is such a valuable resource. If you see an accident, hang tight for a second. Maybe take some pictures of the scenario. And then if it's something that's crazy, go up and talk to either the officer that gets on the scene, give a statement, because I am telling you, if we're not good humans and help fight and stand up for others, it is the driver's statement versus the other person's statement. If they are giving conflicting statements, it's going to drag everything out. There's going to have to be investigation. There's going to have to be more resources. What if the person forgot to take pictures and they don't really have any pictures? So it's this person. Be a good human. Fight for your other humans. If you can give a statement, please stay around to give a statement. And again, I know time is valuable, but if you can help solve the problem, we would all be very appreciative.
Well, but the other point to be made here is that you're not just helping the other people, you're helping yourselves. Because then your insurance rates aren't going up because, these people are screwing over your fellow humans. So, yeah, I mean, if you see an accident, stop, pull over and give your statement to the police officer, because you're not just helping them, you're helping you too. So if you're one of those people that has to have something in it for you, there you go.
Well, then I think about it from a human point too. If you've just been in an accident, I mean, sometimes stress and major events, it has something, it messes with your chemicals. Yeah. If I can't think straight, do you know what a blessing it would be if somebody came behind me to back up my statement or to actually say something that I didn't think about saying? I mean, you're not going to be in your full mindset if you've just had a shocking event. So It can help in a couple of different ways too.
That's an excellent point. Michael, anything?
Well, on the be a good human part, I mean, you got to think about what kind of person is actually going to go with that faking of the claim in some capacity, just to do that. I mean, come on. I mean, if you're not hurt, I mean, it drives me up the wall to even think about it. But
yes, So at our house in the evenings, we do listen to the news. right before the weather. And if one of the animal, I think it's ACP or whatever the one with the animal is, my husband will scramble for the remote because that is an instant. I just cannot deal with the abuse of animals or elderly people. He's starting to do that now on the attorney commercials because I'll turn around and I'll be like, oh my, he's like, oh, nope, we're going to turn this commercial off. You don't need to hear this commercial.
I'm trying to figure out somebody pasted something, put something in our live chat you'll have to look at later because it says anyone familiar with crypto. And then there's something else on there. Oh, it's just, I love it when you get spam. You're on the air and then you just get spam. It's awesome. Okay. So tell me, have we missed anything on this? We need to get people to contact their legislators and talk about this and do research. And you gave us the names of the people and I've got those down. I'm going to make some clips of that. Is there anything else?
And I would encourage you to help protect yourself. There's a checklist, and I can email it to you, but just print a little piece of paper off and throw it in your glove box to say, what do you do in the event of an accident? So you don't have to rely on, what did I hear 2 years ago during that one podcast? Yeah. Pull that piece of paper out of your glove box and go, okay, follow this. Anything that you can do to help make yourself a better insured or help protect yourself is just going to do nothing but be a blessing to you in the long run.
Yeah. Well, Kayla, bless your heart. This has been a great podcast. I hate that you're having to talk about this, frankly, because, well, obvious.
And we want Kayla's list, Jenni, just for the sheer fact that I pretty much probably can guarantee you, if you search, what to do in an auto accident, you're probably going to get 10 legal firms, in the search results first before you get, an actually good list that tells you what you need to do.
So send me the list, Kayla, and then when I make the little shorts from this interview, I'll just stick them in there.
Okay.
So send me the list. Because, I think we would rather trust you than an attorney.
Call an attorney now.
Maybe we can do a podcast one day that talks about puppies and kitties and cookies and happen to talk about things like this.
I know. Wouldn't that be lovely? Not sure that's going to happen, though. Well, Kayla, thank you again for being with us today. I just can't thank you enough. And it's helped me. And I'm actually going to send the list to my kids who are on our insurance. And Julie says, excellent show. Thank you for all your research, Kayla. And yeah, definitely. And, keep us in mind. If you've got something about insurance that we can help you with or is going to be important for people to know, please don't hesitate to call us and say, hey, can we talk about this? Because that's what we're here for.
Yes, I would love soldiers in the fight.
Well, we can do that. We can definitely do that and get on that because it's super important. It definitely is. So thank you again for your time and, bless you and bless you for everything you do and for being on here and letting us know what's going on. So thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Kayla, we'll talk to you soon and I'll wait on you that list.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye. That was amazing. She's amazing. I'm so glad that she did that for us because I don't think we're thinking about the points that she was making, which is, look, this is affecting us in every area. It's not just one.
Well, and on top of it, because it is kind of out of sight, out of mind, these I'm just going to call them bad players, these legal firms and all the fraud that's kind of taking place in this, because it's out of sight, out of mind. You don't see it. You don't deal with it. You don't know about it unless someone tells you about it. It's so easy for them just to keep the train rolling and just, add more and more and more and figure out, there's big money, obviously in these types of deals. So these guys can create these networks and just, run the fraud train, as fast as they want. And it's just aggravating, but
the fact that the money for this stuff is coming from out of the country.
Yeah.
what has happened to America? You look at the Chinese and the drug trafficking and pot, even in our state alone. And how is this happening? How have we lost control over our backyards? I
Yeah.
mean, it
Well, we've talked about how the legal system has been somewhat weaponized, but you've
yeah,
also got a legal system that takes part in all these fraud
right.
kind
It's
of.
like Julia said.
Well, yeah. I mean, are you really gonna stop all the fraud if you're cutting your own paycheck? I mean, no. I mean, obviously not. I mean, until you get some real legislators that can actually have some real common sense and some real backbone. I mean,
Backbone.
nothing's going to change.
Well, backbone and ethics.
Yeah,
So
ethics.
instead of just saying, no, I want a solar farm because I can make money off of that to feed my cattle. Yes, a legislator said that to me, essentially, in a text
Yeah.
just recently. So, I just feel like,
Well, it's kind of like everything, Jenny. It all comes down to that mighty dollar, and people will pretty much do anything. I mean, in today's time, people will pretty much do anything to keep those dollars rolling in. If it's and we don't live in the same moral value system like
no,
what Kayla said, being a good human, being a good person.
no,
I mean, a normal good person would take responsibility and figure out a way to make it right in some capacity, not take advantage
right.
of some type of legal loophole or something in order to make money or be prosperous. Just like the guys that literally are on the highway pulling up in front of cars and trucks, in an effort to,
that was awful.
I
What
mean,
an awful story.
yeah,
But again, I think I'm going to get that. Maybe what the kids get for Christmas is one of those GoPros, for your car that you stick on, so that you can say, hey, this person just pulled out in front of me and put on the brakes. So let me tell you a couple of things that happened to me on
let's hear about this. How long were you? 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks? How long were you gone?
At some point, it's somewhere between 2.5 and 3 weeks. And part of that was with my sister, in Salt Lake, and we had a great time together. It was the first time we've had some time to spend together since Mom died, so that was really nice, and we enjoyed that. But so the rest of the plan then was to do all of the southern Utah national parks and then end up in Las Vegas, because it does. I mean, if you look at the map, that's how it works. And then just fly back. So we rented a car in SLC and then drove through all the state parks. And then David had never been to Vegas before, so we went there and then flew home. He won't be returning. He has informed me that's like, I didn't think he was going to enjoy it, but you just have to see it one time, anyway. So, but here was the interesting thing. In every single park that we went to, we ran into groups of tourists from other countries, and it was mainly Germans, lots and lots and lots of Germans. But we also ran into French. Lots and lots of, when we got down to Zion, there were lots and lots of Mexican nationals and Hispanic speaking people. And not so much of the others, but in where did we start? At Arches National Park, there were lots of Germans, lots of French. It was just kind of surprising. You would look around and you wouldn't. At one point, we were seeing less Americans than we were seeing Europeans, and that's just the way it was. So we decided we were going to take this trail that goes all the way up to what's called the Delicate Arch. If you've ever seen pictures of Arches National Park, or just Arches, chances are it's Delicate Arch. It's the biggest thing. It's just an arch kind of out by itself on a sandstone outcropping. It's super impressive. You just look at it and you feel like, wow, I'm this big. And that is one great thing about touring these national parks. Most of them are, cataclysmic canyon type national parks. And you stand there and you look up and up and up, and you think, wow, I'm just a little person here. And it's really, humbling to be in those situations and just see the beauty that is nature, and be able to breathe fresh air and all of that kind of stuff. Although I will say they were very crowded, even at this time after kids had gone back to school. I was shocking lots of people my age. Not so many children unless they were European with their European parents. But we were on the way up to Delicate Arch, and there was just this single lady about our age. She was walking up. And so we, were saying something about, oh my gosh, it's so hot, but it's a dry heat. And we were making jokes. And she was actually the only person I've ever met who was from Switzerland. She was not living in Switzerland at the time. She was actually living in, was it Denmark? I can't remember. I do remember her name was Irene. And she was here on vacation from work. She was the assistant for a CEO of a large company. And so David and I just started walking with her because she was by herself. And we managed to make the whole kind of round trip together. And that conversation was fascinating. So we talked about retirement in European countries and in her country. And we talked about how she was able to make this trip and all this kind of thing. And she talked about how it was very depressing to live where she lived because they were taxed. They had lots and lots and lots of taxes. And basically what they got back was government services. Yeah. And that most people that she knew were unable to retire because of the fact that the government gave them a pension. And they call it a pension. We call it Social Security, but it's the same thing. The government gave them a pension, and then they taxed the pension, and then they had to pay for property taxes, and then they had to pay taxes on this, and then they had to pay taxes on that, and they had to pay taxes on this, so that by the end, there were many people who were having to live with their children or find other living arrangements because even after they couldn't really work anymore, they couldn't live on their own because there wasn't enough money for them to be able to do that. And she was very fascinated. It wasn't even fascinating hearing her side of the story. Here's what was fascinating. I said, same thing in America. Exactly the same thing. Oh, but you guys have Social Security that can help you, and you have this, and you can use that, and you have lots of money and freedom here in America. What are you watching, Irene? Are you getting the news that's scrubbed up and edited? So, what are you getting? Because we're getting the same thing here from other countries. We're told what they want us to hear. We're not being told, and think on it. And this was fascinating, and I'll try not to overdo. So I'm looking at the time. It's 1:08 right now. I'll try to get to 1:15 so we can stop. But it was fascinating to watch her expression as we said, yeah, not so much. I mean, we're pretty much in the same boat with you. And oh, really? Is that true? Yes. So it was fascinating. So then
you really got that accent down, Jenni.
Oh, hey, I'm working on it. I'm going to start doing a thing on the side where, they go, hey, can you do this accent? And I'm going to, start trying. Anyway, we got through. So that was Arches. So then our next one was Canyonlands. And the next one was Capitol Reef National Park. And then the next one was Bryce Canyon National Park. So we stayed at a place out. Oh no, it was Zion. Okay, so Bryce and then Zion. So Zion was our last national park on the end. That was it. And so we went from Arches to Zion and then all the ones in between. And when we stayed in Zion, well, my budget wouldn't allow us to stay anywhere really close to Zion because who lordy, that's expensive. So we ended up staying in a kind of a little town about 25, 30 miles away from Zion and then driving back in. And one night, because I have a busted back and kind of fell in Bryce and managed to really screw up my back. And so I went down and got in the hot tub. And there were some younger people around, and I was, just sitting there quietly in the hot tub. And a guy gets in, young guy. I had pegged him probably upper 20s. And he was very talkative, and he was from Germany. And his name is Christian. And we had well, David was like, I was fixing to call the front desk or come down there because he didn't come with me. And he was like, I thought maybe you drowned. Notice he wasn't too worried about it. But so I probably stayed in the hot tub for 2 hours and talked to this guy. And it was the most fascinating conversation I think I have ever had. So he was in Germany. He was a German resident. And we talked about education and the fact that, and we realized by the time we were finished with the conversation that America is now becoming European in the way that we do education. And so, because don't forget, in Europe, they have, in his case, in Germany, they have 4 separate tracks, basically. So you go, if you can't pass a test and you're deemed stupid, then you have to go do a manual labor job, and they train you and that thing, but that's what you do. So you're not doing it because you want to, you're doing it because the government tells you you're too stupid to do anything else. So then they have another track where you pass a certain test, and now you get to be like, up from manual labor, but not quite to what they call a blue collar worker. So it was just, he was on the 3rd track, which was not 100% college, where you become a college professor or, a dilettante who sits in a white tower all day and says, you're stupid because I know better than you. He wasn't that. He was the one that he went through a specific trade school to become a mechanical engineer, is basically what he did. And then, so he had just finished his studies and he was taking a break between the time that he finished his studies and then went on to get a job. And his job was all lined up, and he was just taking this break, and then he was going to go back. And we sat there, and it was the most fascinating conversation, because he said, Germany is, his parents were from Germany, and his parents would tell him how great Germany was. But what has happened is with the onset and advent of PC, that they can hardly say anything anymore before they get shut down. He said religion in their country has just taken a huge tumble. He said Germany used to be one of the most Christian nations, in the European Union, and it's not anymore. And it's been replaced by, all of this other political nonsense. He said the illegal immigration into the country of Germany has been so bad that it's displaced workers. There's a lot of anger and sentiment in Germany over that. And we were talking about Merkel, and I said, well, what did you think about Merkel? Well, they actually, I don't know why, and this was the weirdest part. The kid said in one of our discussions, he said, well, socialism doesn't work. I mean, everybody knows, this was him. Socialism doesn't work. And I said, wow, that's interesting. And then he went on to tell me about how great socialized medicine is.
Yeah, it doesn't work, but socialized medicine's great.
There is such a disconnect there. But here was what was the most interesting about the whole discussion. So he says, at one point, we know that there's something wrong, but we can't put our finger on it. There's something we don't want. Most of Germany doesn't want the LGBTQ RSTV stuff thrown down. We don't care what people do. We just don't want you to make us do anything. We don't want this fighting. We don't want you telling us how to live. We don't want you to tell us how to do things. And just recently, apparently within the last year, the new PM, I think, came out and tried to get a socialized education is a powerful tool. That's right. And that's what they have in Germany. And it teaches
always
you.
right.
Yeah. So he was talking about how this new PM basically came out with a filter that they were going to impose on the internet because they didn't want Germans seeing certain things and they didn't want Germans saying certain things.
Wow.
And he said, I have never seen Germans get that upset over anything in my life. And it may have been Merkel that did it at the end of her term. And that's kind of how she got, because everybody just went, no, we're not doing this. And he said, and I just didn't understand that because Germans are very quiet people. They don't get upset about anything. And I said, well, let me ask you this question, Christian. So if you can't speak about things, what does that do for you? And he had to stop and he thought about it for a minute and he said, well, then I guess anybody can kind of tell us whatever, they want to tell us, and we have to believe it, and then we can't say anything about it, or we have to accept it. And I said, well, that's very interesting. So why do you think that Germans would get so upset and angry over a filter that would not allow them to get certain information, or to say certain information? And so we had that discussion, and he came to the realization, just by me asking questions, that freedom of speech is the most powerful thing there possibly is to personal liberty ever. And I said, well, why do you think people might want people not to know what was going on? And so just through this conversation with him, I found that he was very interested in what was going on outside of the United States and why somebody would have some kind of personal interest, or what's going on outside of Germany. And why would somebody have a personal interest in them not wanting to know what was going on in other countries and scrubbing news and that kind of thing. And I think he finally figured out that there are people who want other people to be subjugated to them because they're more important. And that maybe he did say this numerous times. He said the rich keep getting richer, and the rich are the ones. So he's putting it on the rich, but not all the rich are the bad guys. It's the ultra rich that are pretty much the bad guys, because they have so much money and they want a mucky muck because they want to make things go in their favor. So, he didn't realize that our national bank was owned by personal banking interests with, he didn't realize that. I said, so because these Europeans have been fed the same bull crap that we have, which is we're the freest country on earth. We're free. And people are not understanding that the more your propaganda, like Julia says, the Rothschilds, etc. The people are not understanding that at this point in time, the America, the free home of the brave thing is just simply propaganda. And that being put out to other countries is to propagandize them into thinking that we're this free nation. Because when I said something like, well, we have the same problems here too, and he said, but you don't, we're America, you're free. And it's very interesting to hear other people from outside of the country who live in socialized countries talk about how free we are, and then look at their face when they're told, no, that's not what's going on here. And
well, that message is completely curated around the world in one way or another. And then if you add kind of a level of censorship on top of it, like they have in China, they don't have access to, information like what we talk about. But I'll tell you, this popped in my head while you were talking about that, where you were talking about how subjugated things are. And I think that's not to go back to Trump, but Trump is what popped into my head when he gave that speech where he basically said, they hate him so much. They're coming after him so much because he's standing in the way for us. Once they get him, then they can get us. Once they take out, a couple of these key people all over the place, like we've seen this censorship over the last, 2 or 3 years, especially the last 2 years or so, I mean, and for anyone that's going to say this stuff isn't happening, how does Elon turn it back on at Twitter if it's not happening? How does Mark Zuckerberg, who was just in a Senate hearing, literally admit that he colluded with the CIA and the FBI and all these agencies in order to censor people with medical information and all kinds of stuff? I mean, he literally said it, admitted it, said, yes, I was directed by these people to do this. So to say that doesn't happen is completely insane. But, if we don't stand up, if we don't, if I think there's a ton of American people, just like the people you spoke to, that think it's all roses and they're free and they have no idea that if they don't pay their property tax, their house is going bye-bye. If they don't do this, if they don't do that, everything we do is tracked and traced and everything else. I mean, there's, like you said, I mean, we're literally losing freedom, every single day. And it's just it's a slow kill. They're not going to sit there and just come out and just waylay everything all at once. It's just a slow, turn this off, change this, do this. And I'll tell you, when we go to do the next podcast, because you brought up kind of that super elite deal, I'm going to give you some stats where we just take out, like, things are really inflated when you look at statistics with salaries and how much money people make and things like that. I'm going to give you some stats where we just take out the top 100 earners in the United States and see what the average incomes drops to. Take out the top 1,000. Only 1,000. You take out the top 1,000 and then see what the average income drops to. It's mind blowing. You take out the top 10,000, and 10,000 people is not a lot of people. You take out the top 10,000 people, it literally is exponential down the separation of wealth. And those people, they control things around here.
Well, and I hate to be the one that demonizes, rich people. I mean, I hate to be that, because America was a place in which people had enough freedom that if you came here with $5 in your pocket, in 40 years, you might have 5 million in your pocket. And that was the way this country was predicated. The whole nation was predicated on that. But what's happened over the years is the people at the top, the Rothschilds, all of the other ones, the super elite, the more you have, the more you want. And it's these people, and I even, mentioned that too. I said to Christian, I said, do you know about the WEF? And he said, oh yes, the World Economic Forum. And we talked a little bit about that. And I said, how do those people I mean, they're making policy, world policy. Why do you think you and I are sitting here and we have the same problems in common?
Yeah.
Yet we're not hearing that in America, and you're not hearing that in Germany.
But
Who's
it's the same. Yeah.
benefiting from this?
Yeah.
And then he talked about, well, we hate this notion where, you know, they pit people. You're an extremist if you say anything, and then, you know, your people come after you, and that silenced a lot of people in Germany because people have been called extremists. We talked about Snowden. He was absolutely, you know, surprised when I said, well, you know, here's the problem. If you work for the government and then you find out that the government that's supposed to be for the people is really screwing the people, you better say something about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be very shocking when you talk to real people from other countries and you find out that the WEF is winning, people. They're winning. They have the whole world. It used to be that song. Remember the Jesus song? He has the whole world in his hands. Yeah. It's not like that anymore. We've replaced Jesus with the WEF, and now we're all in their hands. They have all the money. They have all the power. They have all the control. They're making the entire world into their own little thing. And what they're doing is exactly what you're going to talk about at the beginning of the podcast on Friday. They're making the rich richer and the poor poorer, because the more you can tax us, the more you can subjugate us through all of this nonsense with insurance, and you have to have this to be able to get into business, and we have to license you for this, and we have to, do you know there's no licensing in Germany? That was interesting. He said, I said, do you realize that you know, when he was talking about being a mechanical engineer, I said, well, do you realize that if you do like HVAC, for example, here, you have to be licensed for that, and you have to pay a license. And sometimes people can't afford to do that. And he said, are you kidding me? After they go to school to learn this stuff, they might not be able to afford the license to be able to do their job. And I said, yep. He was shocked about that. I mean, he was shocked that, again, Americans are propagandized to the absolute core. And I mean, if we're going to continue to watch commercials and not do what Julia does, which is do something else, if we're going to continue to watch the news, if we're going to continue to listen to what people say, you know, and not research for ourselves like Kayla did, I mean,
yeah,
come on.
Yeah.
I hope it's not too late. I do. But man, having some discussions with people from other countries really brought it home to me. It's the whole world, people. It's not just us. And all of your stupid little ignorant people who are voted into offices and then go to these national conferences and these world conferences and get money from these nonprofit organizations. What do you think this is doing, people?
Yeah. Well, Jenny, let's bring it right back
what
down
do you
to the
think
local.
This is doing, people?
Let's bring it right back down to the local level, all the way down to your local school. What do you think's happening to all these teachers and counselors and all these people going to these huge education shows all over the place? Yep. You know, it's a model. It's the exact same thing. But for me, I'll close myself out with this. You know, we've talked about this multiple times, and I've said this multiple times. You know, you go back to Rockefeller Sr. What's he say? Competition is a sin. You know, the web of this is basic, just good old boy. You know, just like George Carlin said. You know, in that one unbelievably just probably honest joke where he was talking about it's a big club, you're not in it. You know, it's a little 2-minute deal. I'd tell anybody to go look that up.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, this collusion and racketeering by these people, and you could take that all the way down even into this legal insurance side, where you have a group of people that are colluding together to make a whole bunch of money. At the end of the day, you know, if we can just eliminate this kind of collusion factor, and you I mean, that's what government's supposed to do. They're supposed to be an antitrust. They're supposed to break all these things up. You know, they encourage all that, and because they make a profit.
They make money off of it.
They make a ton of money off of these drug companies, off of these big businesses, off of these financial instruments, off of all these deals. They make a ton of money in one way or another. So they're never going to stop it. We have to be able to do that, or at least come to the realization to get the proper people into our local government first to start stopping these things at the local level, and then hopefully, escalate up over, a series of years.
So there's something. I was having a conversation with JJ Humphreys, who is a legislator from the southeastern part of our state, who has been really great on some issues, but has been caught by a constituent basically colluding with some solar people to apparently try to get an installation kind of in the region where he lives. And I thought, well, this can't be right. I mean, JJ's a good guy. I mean, he's going after DHS, to try to get DHS cleaned up. And I've not had a problem with the guy. And so I got this text from him today. I support my right as a private landowner. Are you saying I should refuse to lease my property and earn good money? Do you want me to send you my land payment or my cow payment? And we're talking about foreign investments. Basically there is a feeling, and this is why one of the reasons Wallace got tossed out. I'm going to put biosludge down on my property because it saves me money and it's about me, and I'm a landowner and I have private property rights, and screw you, next door neighbor. It's my property. I get to do what I want. Oh, you're having problems with your drinking water because we have PFAs in it from the human crap I've been putting on my property. Well, screw you. Too bad. I don't really care. I'm going to die anyway. I mean, this is just, it's insipid and disgusting. And so many of these people go, yeah, I go to this church, or I go to this church. Well, you can go to church as long as you want, and that's all great. But if you can't care about your fellow man, that's your property. But I'm not going to do something that's going to piss off my neighbors or hurt them just because I want to have extra money or I want to have something. This is it. We're lost. I mean,
Kayla said it right. You got to be a good human. You got to be a good human.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's enough on that for today, even though we could continue. Trust me, I can do a whole 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah. We could talk all day long.
Absolutely. Okay. So we're going to talk about carbon capture on Friday. And this is if you don't know anything about carbon capture, we don't have a huge audience today, but I know you guys who are with us are so supportive, and we appreciate you so much. Please try to get as many people as you can on the podcast for Friday. It's live. It's not a replay. Michael and I are going to be talking to Robert. I can't remember his last name. And former Congressman Steve King, Robert Nazario, and Steve King's, I'm so sorry, from the Free Soil Foundation. And they're going to be talking about carbon capture. And it's another one of these nonsensical green initiatives. People, I only have a master's in biology. So I'm not, I'm not an ivory tower academic. But I can tell you this, and you can look this up in a World Book encyclopedia if you can find one. I have one if you want me to share. But let me just tell you this. So we take in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. Okay. All right. And then what ends up happening is green plants take up carbon dioxide, right? And then they return oxygen. Isn't that a bizarre? It's called the oxygen cycle. Okay. And so pulling carbon dioxide out of the air because it's bad. Does anybody kind of see what might happen by doing that? Just curious. So don't we need plants to get the animals to eat them? Oh, but if animals can't eat plants because they're not growing very well, because we're pulling all of the carbon dioxide out of the air, I guess maybe bugs do better, so maybe that's where this whole you can eat bugs things comes in. All in all, this is such a bad deal. One of these carbon capture lines is actually broken in Illinois. It injured 40 people and almost killed them because when you breathe in carbon dioxide, peeps, everything shuts down because we run on oxygen, not carbon dioxide. So this is bad. I mean, this is really sincerely bad. And if you're as bad of a conspiracy theorist as I am, you could literally say to yourself, gosh, it sounds like they're trying to kill people here.
You don't want to get me going down that road, Jenny. I can talk for days and days on that road.
I know. And I think it would probably be okay because maybe some of these people who go, oh, Michael and Jenny, they're just conspiracy theorists with their little tinfoil hats. Maybe they would kind of get the notion that if you have a crap ton of money and you're a mean person, you can figure out ways to kill people so that there's a lot less of us here. I mean, I don't know. Just saying.
Georgia Guidestones, Jenny, Georgia Guidestones that are no longer here.
What now?
Well, you remember the Georgia Guidestones, don't you?
No.
Oh, come on.
What?
An anonymous donor put up the 10 commandments of the New World in Georgia, back in the 70s, an anonymous donor named R.C. Christian. And the number one rule on the Georgia Guidestones, it's you need to go look at the 10 rules. They completely, show literally what today is. But the first rule in the Georgia Guidestones was to maintain humanity under 500 million people.
That's right, because when I was in school, we kept saying, "Uh-oh, I'm getting in trouble from Julia." I don't think I do. Do I know that?
You have to know. Anyway, just go look up the 10 commandments of the Georgia Guidestones. Okay. They also had a time capsule and all kinds of stuff over there. I mean, and a lot of people, the real people that have really looked into it, they think Ted Turner was the the anonymous person behind it and the whole 9 yards.
So interesting.
It's literal one world order, global government.
Yeah. So if you really honestly, I think that was the thing we can end on. If I had ever thought to myself recently after 2020, let's say, I don't believe in global government, this whole, one world government thing. I don't believe in that. Having met these two Europeans who live in different parts of Europe and basically said, we have what you have.
Well,
and the media is invested in not letting us know that this is happening. This is why you have to go to news sources, even outside, read German sources in English. I read an Irish paper and follow that. And you just read the Irish paper and it's like, you're not hearing any of the stuff that's in that Irish paper that's here. And guess what? They're fighting the same stuff.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, Jenny, just recently, and this just got defeated here recently. I'm sure it's going to come back into our hemisphere here multiple times over the next several years. But don't forget, we just defeated the bill to stop the UN from dictating, or the global the health deal, the World Health Organization,
right?
Health Organization from dictating how we're going to react here in Oklahoma. I mean, so it's not like it's crazy. They're working where they can, where they can get things in and out. They're going to get things in and out. They play a long game. They don't look at things like hourly or daily or monthly. They look at things over 10 or 20 years. What can we get done in 20 years?
Yep. That's right. Which is why what Reagan said about freedom is lost in the next generation if we don't educate those kids, which is why the Marxists knew that if you took over education and made America bad and did all of these things, I mean, that we wouldn't have the generations who believed in what the ideal of America was, you know, what we could do, how we should be. I mean, my gosh, we're just going down the path that they have. It's so frustrating when you talk to people and you're like, well, I went to OSU and that was out at the, you know, and you're like, oh, that was the other thing that Christian said to me that I just absolutely freaked out about. He said that there was, something that they were doing. And he said, have you ever heard of bread? And I think you call it, this is something bread. And I was like, bread and circuses? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, seriously? I'm shocked. I was like, oh my God, this 7-year-old kid from Germany gets it. He just hasn't put it all together. You know, it's like the Lego blocks and he's got them close, but he hasn't quite got them clicked together.
Well, here, what kind of journalist are you? You should have got this guy's contact. We should have him on the show as a guest just to show people what is going on thought process wise.
Yeah, because he was great. I mean, great to talk to, and his English was phenomenal. But he'd been speaking in school. The track that he was on, he had exposure to English for like 13 years, so his English was really, really good. But yeah. So anyway, we keep going, and we need to stop. So don't forget to. But again, we could just keep going. So we're stopping. And we'll see you again on Friday morning at 9:00. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And please share this. And I'll put some, I'll get with Kayla, we'll get that information from her, and I'll put some little clips together and then put them back up. So please share those with your family and your friends so that we know kind of what's going on. Everybody knows, and we can help Kayla get some of this stopped, hopefully during next session. So,
yeah. Well, and thank Kayla for coming, you know, just
for sure,
stumbling upon that herself and not just going like everybody else does and say, I'm too busy. I need to check my email. I need to do this. I need to look at that. I mean, she actually went in, started doing the research, connected the dots, which really that's all we got to do is start connecting dots. So, you know, praise to her. And like she said, be a good human.
But she is being a good, because how many people actually know that this is going on, but they're like, well, I don't care. So long as I'm making money, what do I care about it?
Yeah.
So, you know, again, Kayla is the example of a good human for doing, you know, for speaking up and saying what's going on. So, again, we're happy to have her, and we will see you again on Friday morning at 9 a.m. So happy to be back with you, Michael.
Glad you're back. That's for sure.
All right. We'll talk to you then. Bye.
Bye.